We are live and it is 6 p.m.
Yep, mic's on, please.
Kate, you want to let those people in? Yeah, this one. What's that? Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, welcome everybody. We are here in the workshop for a couple different items. The first is the Wastewater Committee. So I'm not sure who's picking.
Yeah, I don't mind kicking off. Thanks, Mayor and trustees. I appreciate this. So several meetings ago, I think in February, maybe end of January, there was some brief discussion on the various committees for the town, and there was a specific request to bring back this specific committee for a more in-depth discussion at a later date. So we published that and kind of queued that up. Staff has provided a memorandum on the backside just to provide a context, kind of a history. So a special thanks to Michael and others who worked on this to provide a narrative. You know, the committees that the town has are basically an extension of the Board of Trustees. And so they're here to help you do your work. And as you assign or as you develop these committees and assign a scope and purpose to these committees, they're really there to help you do what it is that you need to do. And so I think there's been some discussion previously about this committee and how it functions, what it might look like or what it might not look like. So we provided a history. It was formed in 2010, kind of in a transition period when the dissolution of the Fraser Sanitation District kind of came about and kind of helped made that transition. It sounded like in the early years, it did a lot of work in rate analysis and actually doing the heavy lifting on those kinds of things, and served for a number of years wrestling through that kind of information. As the town's made a transition to using probably consultants to provide that kind of data, I think there's some conversation around. So what would perhaps be the role and the scope and the function of this committee moving forward? So that's staff's. So we're looking for direction on what you'd like to do.
Okay. Any trustee input?
Well, I'm the one that brought it up. I've noticed that the meetings are generally canceled on Tuesdays. I don't know if there's much that we do in that committee meeting other than talk about stuff and then bump it up, and then the same three people regurgitate what we talked about at the committee at the board level. So I was just thinking it's a way we could skip a step, and you know, most of the stuff that we're working on now is stuff that Joe takes care of, and there really just isn't a big position for a committee on this, on the sanitation system. Now the town owns it, runs it.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I'm on this committee and I've been to one meeting so far. It does sound like they did a lot in the early days of this committee, but with our current setup, I just don't think a committee is necessary at this point.
Okay.
My concern is how we work out the boundaries of the town and the boundaries of the district, and also the appeal responsibilities of the committee.
Those are actually good questions. I guess if it were the decision of the board to go this direction, as some of the trustees have alluded to, I would expect that those would come back to the board, at least unless you otherwise define them. But any appeals like you have now would probably come back to the board at that point. So unless you direct otherwise that you want that handled administratively, but I would presume that those would come back to the Board of Trustees.
But if the,
Sorry.
but if the appeal is against the board,
Right. So it's interesting because in working with staff, there's probably going to be coming to you in the very near future, very near future, some recommendations pertaining to your liquor license. So the liquor license would still be done by the board, but there's some administrative matters that involve that probably are best fitted with the municipal judge, just because it creates a good kind of separation of duties and responsibilities. So to your point, trustee, I think in that case, that's correct. You would probably want to put that either in an administrative function. So whether that be the town manager's desk or whether that be a group that would work to look at that, we could probably work with Rod a little bit and maybe come up with a good alternative or two for you to consider if that's your direction.
I mean, the board doesn't have really any power. It's just advisory.
well, it has appeals if you look at the description.
Yeah, there's a section 2 there that talks about the appeals, and I presume that has to do with delinquency, outstanding bills, or yes, I was a little confused myself as exactly what was being appealed there. So maybe working with Rod a little bit to understand what perhaps was the intent of that, unless somebody has. I'm not sure. I'm looking past Andy. Maybe Andy's got some ideas about how that got there, but we can certainly do a little more digging there to figure out what that appeal mechanism was supposed to be and whether it's prudent to even have it, or if there is, like you said, if there's an inherent built-in conflict, is there a way to provide some alternatives around that? But if it's your direction to go away from that, then we can certainly address that, because I don't propose we necessarily do that tonight. We're just going to take all your input, and then we'll try to formulate the next step for the board to consider at a future meeting. So,
Is there anything in the record that shows the last time somebody took an appeal to the advisory committee, Water and Sanitation Advisory Committee?
I'm looking at staff, and they're all shaking their head to me no. So
Question. Use the microphone so other people can hear you. Thank you, including me.
The town has a Board of Adjustment. I would think you could
possibly
open
look
up
at
their,
The Board of Adjustment has been changed to the town board. It hasn't? The Board of Adjustment was done away with.
Isn't that the planning commission?
No,
What's the planning commission?
I think it did go to planning.
it frequently does.
Oh.
It's not
I think it
uncommon
went
to
planning
combine those
commission,
two.
not to-
oh,
Right.
I see.
Yeah.
I don't know about here specifically, but it's not
Catherine would
uncommon to
know.
combine the planning and the Board of Adjustments. Okay. Well, so let us do a little digging to figure out what that appeals process may have been a part of, and we can certainly do that if someone has some knowledge, Ron, or others have some knowledge around that. We can certainly take that into consideration. But
I would-
I don't
I'm
know
just,
what it would
I'm
be.
just
Yeah.
taking a shot in the dark here, but this was probably set up when we actually had there was its own entity.
Entity, sure.
It wasn't a advisory committee to the board that this,
So it's a leftover.
yeah, it's
kind
a
of thing.
leftover that has been missed over the years.
Okay,
That
good.
is my guess,
Sure.
but I can't.
Well, in fact, I think Rod gave us a description of it last year that he was really surprised about,
Oh.
because the primary
Sure.
thing on that one had nothing to do about advising the board, but it was an appeals board.
Okay.
And then I don't know if it's appropriate. I see in our audience a former mayor and a person who's presently on the committee. Would it be appropriate to ask what?
Yeah, two former mayors.
Oh, yeah, and they were both on, yeah. But Dennis is currently on the committee and I didn't know
Yeah, I
if
was
he
gonna
wanted
open
to
it- I'll
say,
open it up to them once the
Okay.
board is done. And then, yeah, is there any other board? I mean, there's four. I think we either need to dissolve it, do away with it, or change it dramatically, because having four board members on that is like having the board
Yeah.
there.
and keeping the rest of the board in dark.
And yeah, so that's my feeling on it. And like Wes said, when towns grow up, they hire consultants to,
Yeah.
to do the rate study and stuff. The thing is with those people, Dennis and Ron have been, involved for years. I don't know how long. And that institutional knowledge is what we would be losing by disbanding that. And maybe it's we involve them some other way. But I don't know.
Mhm.
Mayor, one of the things you can do too, it doesn't mean just because if you were to head down a path where the board decided to do away with this committee, it doesn't mean that you can't have an ad hoc committee. So it's not uncommon when you run into a particular issue that you stand a committee up to take a look at something for 30 days or 6 months, or they just look at this project or take on this particular issue. Again, it serves at the pleasure of the board. But if you got into a situation, particularly where these gentlemen who have such a vast history and knowledge, if there's a way for us to utilize them, it doesn't mean that we can't put a working group together and tackle the project that you give us, or tackle the issue that you have, or if you feel so inclined. So I found over the years that in a lot of ways, ad hoc committees kind of have some great flexibility, because you don't feel like you have to have a standing meeting and try to figure out what's the agenda going to be and how are we going to keep people interested and how do we keep them engaged. But at the same time, when you do have a really pressing issue, you can get people together who are very passionate about that and who can lean in and kind of give you some recommendations, some thoughts, some ideas about how to navigate that, or just be the first start to vet what the issues might be or how they may impact the committee. So it doesn't mean that there aren't ways to involve people if at a point it's important for us to kind of tackle that. So anyway, just a thought.
Well, and another thought would be is if we could get them, Ron and Dennis and Bob, because they've all been on a long time, if
Yeah.
they had some pearls,
Yeah.
some things that they think that are important for the town to continue with or be able to look at or somehow capture for information that we can carry forward for referencing,
Sure.
to give that to us, that would be great.
Yeah.
Because I know that I remember their frustration. I remember Ron's big frustration was that they didn't know what was going on.
Sure.
Well, if you're at a board meeting, you'd find out from a staff report,
Right.
but it was
Kind of a disconnect.
redundant. There was that distance. So because they weren't so involved as they were, like you say, 15, 20 years ago. So anyway,
Yeah.
there should be a way to capture some of that information also.
Don't disagree.
Okay, any other trustee comments before?
I don't know, Wes, I don't know if this is typical or not, but an advisory committee? Our Upper Colorado River Watershed Group, we're putting together an advisory committee of people that are there to do projects, to help us out with different things, try and bring some more experts into the room, but they don't meet. They're individuals that serve on a committee that take care of things like in the case of Ron and this institutional knowledge that we need. Well, they can meet. I mean, that's obviously could be that, but it's more of a resource for the town. So, and you're right, Philip. I mean, these are people that have been involved forever with this, and to have them there as a resource we can call on would be a tremendous asset for the town, and not cut this resource loose, but just make it more of an advisory type group rather than a group that felt obligated to meet and carry on business along with the trustees that have to be there. So be a lot more efficient use of everybody's time, I would think.
That's another way to go about it. And you just limit it to those three particular individuals, and you only meet as you have something to give them, or as there's a need, that the board wants to refer back for them to take a look at. So.
And we can modify the description of that committee to change it into this type of thing. And then over the years, it becomes open to people that have an interest in the system and they apply to the town and they can become these type of resource people. So especially for big piece of physical infrastructure like this, it would seem like having some of these resource people in the background would sure be helpful. So a lot of it's going to be staff, a lot of it's going to be our water attorney, that sort of thing, but there's still local knowledge. It's really important because we're not at the point, I don't know that we'll ever, hopefully never be at the point where we have a full-time water person that we have obviously water infrastructure people, but our water attorneys separate, these experts we hire tend to be out of the community. And so these are community assets that could be involved in this. So
Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna let Dennis, if Dennis wants to.
He's zooming from my computer and he hasn't done that before. So is there a way you can unmute him, Michael?
I believe I'm unmuted.
Oh, there you are.
Yes. Hello, I'm Dennis Souls. I previously served on the Fraser Sanitation District, and I'm happy to serve in whatever capacity the town board might need. Reorganizing the committee might be a good idea. Seeing how we haven't had a meeting for a while, and it appeared to me that we only had meetings when the town manager needed some help. I don't recall exactly how the charter or description of the committee was formulated, or who wrote it or put it together. So I don't know exactly why we were going to review or hear complaints. However, I'm sure it would give the board a little insulation. And the fact that there are some members of the committee that are not on the board, I think that gave a little bit more representation of the community. I don't have much more to add to that at this point. Thank you.
Okay, Peggy, does Peggy want to say anything? You want to ask Peggy?
Hi, everybody. I do agree that sometimes it's a good idea to reevaluate committees and boards. And so, but I really do value Dennis's and Ron's and Bob Wolf's expertise. Since sanitation and water were not my specialty, it was one of those things that you had to learn over time. And I think that having their expertise is really critical, and I would hate to lose that. So I think an advisory committee would be a good idea.
Thank you. Anybody else? Catherine or Amy's with the newspaper, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like we need to do more homework.
Yes, sir. So I think what we do is, with the board's permission, staff will work on doing a little more digging and finding out what the appeals might be. We'll also bring back to you a couple different options. The first would, and I'll get with the town's attorney to make sure we're doing this in a step-by-step process, but it may be easier to actually, since we're going to move to an advisory, instead of taking it and just redlining it, it may be easier to simply do, like, have the one stop, completely do away with that, but then stand up an advisory committee. So you're likely, although if you'll give me permission, I'll huddle up with staff tomorrow, but you're likely to see us come back with like two-step process for this. So the first step is to wind this piece down. It may be cleaner to do that. And the second piece may be then to stand up this other advisory group that would just be 3 or 4 citizens, kind of an advisory capacity. It's going to, function as we need it. In essence, a little bit like an ad hoc. So anyway, hopefully we can get that back to you in a relatively short period of time. So,
Great, sounds good.
is that consistent with the conversation? Yes, ma'am.
and figure out what to do with the properties that are in the water district, water wastewater district that are not in the town. I don't know how many there are. It's just, from my understanding, they don't match.
I don't have any idea what you're,
Yeah.
I don't understand what you're. Do you understand?
No,
Can you
I.
clarify?
Like,
So,
I
far as
Make
think
a
you're referring to like
clarification.
Meadow Ridge Hill and Winter Park
What?
Highlands, right? Are you referring to like Meadow Ridge and? Winter
No,
Park
I don't
Highlands?
think it's that many properties.
Three homes that were in sanitation district that weren't included in town at the end of County Road 8 in Wapiti. But I do think your out of town service agreement took care of that,
Okay,
but I'm not for
Okay.
sure on that part of it.
we can check.
I just didn't want that to fall through the
Yeah.
cracks.
Thank you.
Joe, are the properties, the old Byers Peak Ranch properties up there that are served by town water, is that?
The ones that are served by town water were in town, and there was an agreement negotiated with Clark to serve them with sewer.
Okay,
The ones that are on, I say Byers Peak Ranch, there's
The old-
5 homes there.
yeah, the old Byers
Yeah,
Peak Ranch.
yeah.
The John's
Yeah.
property?
Yeah, there was a deal negotiated with them before the district was dissolved that they could use septic tank until they had X amount of properties developed there.
Yeah,
Then they would have to tie on to the sewer.
and they use town water, correct? Or-
Yes,
Yeah,
they do.
Thanks, Thanks for coming tonight, Dennis.
Thank you for
We
your
really
your
appreciate
direction.
it.
We appreciate that. And at the same time, I think it was Trustee Souls that mentioned, we certainly want to make sure we express our gratitude even for the service. So if it's permissible with the board, we'll probably have some plaques and things of that nature as well.
Yep.
I look at Sarah because I won't actually be doing this, but I'm sure she'll be helping me with this. So anyway, with your permission, I'd like to honor the people who have served and sweated and worked so hard, even as we make this transition, even if we pull them back in an advisory capacity. I just think there's something that's beneficial to say thank you to people for
Absolutely.
service. So
Absolutely.
with your permission, I'll cue that up.
Perfect.
good.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Any other before we move on?
Thank you all.
Next is Project P update. Joe, are you?
So, yeah, so I am going to have Joe walk us through that. So he was gracious enough to help me pull together some information. We have been working hard. We, as in Joe, mostly doing most of the work, but we have been working hard trying to make sure we get this project back online and get this treatment plant up and operational. In your packet tonight, we've attached one of the more recent reports from Merrick that kind of gives you a bit of a snapshot, a status update. And then I've asked Joe if he could kind of walk us through that and then talk about what he sees as this project and when and how this project will be coming online. I know they're starting to treat and introduce chemicals and things of that nature. So Joe, if you'll take a few minutes and kind of walk us through Merrick's report and then maybe look in your crystal ball about what you see over the next 30, 60, 90 days.
And just before you start, Joe, only because Andy's eyeing me because I'm using my cell phone. I'm actually, this was not printed out for me, so I'm on my phone
wait.
looking at the.
I'll share. with
I'm
you.
not on Facebook making derogatory comments about anybody.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
I'd offer mine, but I wrote notes on mine. I can't give it up this time.
All right, cool. Okay, Joe, thanks.
Go through, and I'll just go through the construction update first. And step by step, place settler number 1, it is done, no leaks. We'll put that in service tomorrow.
Yay.
So.
And that's been a
we'll-
lot of hard work. To Joe and his credit, not just, there had to be some workaround. So I want to say thanks to Joe and his ingenuity, for lack of a better word on that. So thanks.
And then other part of that plate settler number 1 is item number 5 on the back, which is plate settler. They said plate settler number 1, which again would be plate settler number 2, where I'll take that out of service tomorrow and have them finish the updates, fixing leaks and cleaning that one out. So then we'll have both of those done. Should be first part, I would say the first part of next week. House water system is next, item 2. We have been dosing chemical with the snowstorms back east and the weather back east, and also our weather kind of held up our deliveries. We got the chemicals yesterday and started dosing again, and promising the first bit of dosing we did when they fixed the water system, we had really good results on the phosphorus, like 97%, 98% removal on phosphorus. And then the zinc, speak out of turn, we had the first couple of test results weren't so great, but the recent ones that I got were very, very promising. We took plus or minus about 80% of the zinc out. So that would put us in compliance on both
Okay.
permits. So we have not checked the house water pump 2. There's some extra switches down there that are unaccountable for. So that's part of the problem with us working through there. It appears now that instead of the power from the pump running to the SCADA system and telling us, hey, I'm running an auto, it goes through a switch that in turn tells the SCADA system that I'm running an auto. So we have some back checks we have to do on power and stuff like that. But more or less, the house water system is working. Updates. We did have Eaton come to the site and do the electrical inspection on the equipment that was damaged. We got the report yesterday. It was not that great. We need to have some in-depth discussions amongst ourselves, Wesley, myself, and Gene Reardon, the attorney, and then I can be better abreast to inform you all. The flashing is done above the garage doors. All of the foam backer cells in between pin tees, we had big gaps in between the tees. They've caulked those and or put backer rod in, except for one, they're waiting on some bigger rod, the T spacing, and trying to fix the roof leak. That was another punch list item. They have one room left to do on that. All the wall penetrations were done. We have the punch list. Eric, who is Moltz's or Merrick's representative, him and myself will walk through the punch list tomorrow to make sure everything's documented, because some stuff was on there that was done, not taken off. And the rapid mixer, the one shaft is on its way. We're still discussing length of the other shaft. It might be say engineering issue would be the best way to put it. There's a miscommunication between the engineer speccing this mixer with this length shaft and the mixer company saying they can provide this mixer with this length of shaft. On the mag meters, those guys went, everything's done, except for I'm requesting that they show me the ground goes to earth. It has to go to earth, not just to a green wire. So, any questions?
I have a question. Phosphorus,
Yes.
why are our levels high? Where does it come from?
It's a natural occurring substance that
In our water?
every living thing needs.
I know.
And we have it.
I'm supposed to have it to keep my bones strong.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering if I need a supplement or I don't have to worry about it.
I'm not
It's in
gonna
my
say
water?
that. I have no idea on that part. I can honestly say there is probably none in any of the drinking water up here.
Okay. Darn.
The town of Fraser uses groundwater, which usually 90% of the time does not have any in it. Winter Park uses surface water, and their surface water is exponentially clean. Me measuring the Fraser River quite a few times, it's non-detectable on phosphorus levels.
It's coming from cleaning compounds then, or?
Yeah, cleaning. So us, what we eat.
Yeah.
Our waste,
So
there's
the-
a math equation.
But
It's,
Joe, we started down this road to get rid of copper also, right?
yep, and zinc.
So this is also getting rid of copper and zinc out of the water.
Yes. The metals were our driving force,
Yeah,
the towns. The phosphorus was the driving force for Northern Water.
so in other words, the state required that we get the copper and zinc out of the water.
Yes.
And again, the reason for that was, it's always been there in the wastewater, but we had enough water downstream to dilute it. It wasn't a problem.
Honestly, I think it was more to the term we have now be able to measure at lower quantities. And our river is so clean that the metal, copper, zinc, any of the metals that we discharge sticks to the fish rather than sticking to any of the organics in the water.
But is there a case to be made if there'd been more water in the stream?
If
that we-
it's,
We wouldn't have this problem, or
if it was as clean as it is, no, it wouldn't make any difference.
we still would have had the copper problem?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, the water's low as it would be, but the bigger issue is the water is so clean.
can we separate out the cost of this improvement to take the copper and zinc out versus the phosphorus, or is it all wrapped up in the same?
Oh, no. The cost will be separate.
The costs are separate,
Yeah,
separated.
because Northern's paying 40% of it.
So they're paying for the phosphorus removal.
Yeah.
And the town is paying for the copper and zinc
Yeah.
removal.
And I'm using the same chemical to remove both.
And then ongoing, we have, what's the increase in staff and expense of operating the plant because of this?
Yes, we'll most likely, for sure, have one more employee.
Mhm.
After that point, I really could not say, Andy.
Then
I have
what-
not looked into or bringing somebody on until we got the plant fired up
Right,
and all these issues fixed. I didn't be kind of tough to bring a new person in with
No,
all
yeah.
this hanging out.
I'm just trying to separate out some of the, I mean, the issues that we would have if Northern didn't need to remove the phosphorus. I mean, they're helping pay for the phosphorus removal, but we do have ongoing bills because of the phosphorus removal, so.
Yeah, I guess it's catch 22.
Yeah,
They're helping us pay to remove the metals that we had to remove, and we're going to help them pay to remove the phosphorus. The state health department has requirements. They're thinking that the phosphorus levels will be 0.1 milligram per liter on our discharge permit. We would not be able to meet that currently,
so the state would require this
Yes.
phosphorus removal eventually anyway.
eventually.
Okay,
We've been doing all these as shell game things to extend our time period out so we're not under that requirement. And I think we have it out to about 20 years now
yeah,
before those permit requirements would come upon us. And my hope was that we could have everything operating and we don't have any issues, and then it's a non-issue to meet those requirements.
I'm just trying to, it's a reach, but we're trying to see how much of our treatment cost is due to water diversion outside of our control. And that's a heavy political question, but it comes down to dollar and cents too. though.
In
So-
real terms, it's a hard one to put a number on.
Yeah,
And the hardest part is that the water has been leaving way before it became an issue that the water was leaving. You know, all the water has been out of the stream for so many years
well,
that,
but with drought,
for-
there's less and less coming in too.
yeah.
is the
So for
problem.
us to
So,
say,
yeah.
well, we should have, if we knew an exact number, and I do some part of it, but if it was supposedly 60 cubic feet a second running down the river before Denver started taking water, then that stretch is a pretty easy one to make. But permitting wise, since I've been doing the water and wastewater, even when I worked in Granby, the Fraser wastewater plant was permitted at like 3 or 4 CFS. All of us together here bought about $70,000 meter and put it down there at the bridge in Tabernash in order to gain some water dilution flow. And we wound up gaining about 3 or 4 second feet, which for me is astronomical amount. Right now, our permit is written against 25% of the flow of the river.
So in other words, we're providing out of the wastewater plant about 25% of the flow there.
Yes, on low flow, we are 25% of the flow of the river.
Gotcha.
So 27% to be
Yeah.
exact. So where Dillon, Silverthorne, they're 2% of the flow of the river.
Yeah.
So
This will kind of come into the discussion as we talk about Project N too. So that's just kind of, yeah.
Okay, any other Project P questions?
I don't remember, is Northern paying for 40% of the operating?
yes, Northern is paying 40% of the total project for Project P, and they will pay, as it is right now, 40% of the operational costs for 20 years.
Wow, okay, nice.
And
they're
20
locked in for 20
years,
years, yeah.
where whoever's here is going to have the opportunity to relook at it and see where things
All
are.
right, that will not be.
Yeah.
Ain't gonna be me either, I'm gonna tell you.
Andy will be here.
I might be around here, but I definitely ain't gonna be staying in here.
Won't be interested anymore.
Joe, thank you for that update on Project P. I appreciate it.
Interesting.
And I want to say on the record too, thank you for all your heavy lifting. I would have gone insane if I had to tackle this project on my own, having been here. So I really want to say thank you for all your hard work and rolling up your sleeves and helping get this thing back in line. So thank you.
A
Okay,
lot prettier picture
Cool.
than you painted a couple months ago.
Yeah.
So Project N is the next piece, Mayor, with your permission. So I asked Joe to kind of give an update. In your packet is some material. There's been some, obviously some more conversation about the next step. So we're, just to be candid, we're trying to walk this line where we're really wanting to take a look at this and do a lot of due diligence and wrestle through this, what this might look like, the impacts, the advantages, those kinds of things, without fully saying this is what this is going to be, and we're agreeing to do all of this in this next piece. So in order for us to do that, we need to make some hopefully some intelligent decisions, and we need some good data on which to make those decisions. And so this is that piece. So we're wanting to engage, it would be Merrick on our end. Northern will use Black and Veatch on their end. And actually, by the way, I just want to say Northern's agreed to pick up the tab on all of this next piece, this study piece. So we want to look at our model, and we want to look at what the operation
approve.
issues might be on the plant. But in that, we feel, and Joe's really educated me, hey, look, this is a good chance for us to look at our own operations too, to figure out what efficiencies we could gain, things that we can gain out of it. We actually think we can gain additional potential capacity. I don't want to steal your thunder, but there's a lot of good reason for us to go down at least this next tranche and really do some good due diligence, gather some good data, take a look at our model, take a look at our operations. And then out of that, if if the board at that point decides they want to have a more robust discussion with Northern about what may or may not be a partnership, that's fine. But that'll only be contingent and will hinge on this next piece that we want to take on. So Joe, I didn't mean to steal your thunder, but
No.
please take it from there.
There's no thunder
Okay.
here. I can promise you. I guess bring everybody up to date. The modeling, Northern did modeling 2 years ago, plus or minus in that realm. We came back with the information. They took liberties of utilizing capacities at our existing plant, stuff like that. And then myself looking at what they were proposing, we would have been operating pretty much 3 different sewer plants on one site. And that makes for a lot of headaches and heartaches. So in doing that, my 2 operators, the 2 guys that work for me, Logan and Zach, and then Jim McLaughlin with Merrick, I went through their sheets from Black and Veatch, and we did a markup and sit down, and Jim McLaughlin felt that we could do a better scenario and make it easier on us as operationally if we integrated the nitrogen removal into our existing system. So we kept the budget at about, I think it was $1,500 was what Merrick was allowed to spend on a quick model to see if we were even remotely close to what we were hoping for. The numbers came out really good. Black and Beach had a bunch of questions on the modeling. Those could not be answered because it was very quick and short. So this model and this sheet is the results of that meeting. And as Wesley said, everything we have down there is 20 years old. We have ran way, way past what the intended life was. Unbeknownst to myself, our aerators in the tanks were only supposed to last 5 years. We have 20 years. So there's an enormous amount of things that, based on our maintenance and upkeep, we've ran out the life expectancy as long as you can. So in doing this project, our discussions are trying to better our equipment down there, make the nitrogen removal that we currently do better, and update the plant is really, I mean, those guys are going to pay a good portion of it. They were willing to pay the 100% of Project N. And in doing this, I think some costs coming our way would be right and just. But in past conversations, there was resistance on our group here, not just you guys, but the other parties involved, to spend any money. So that's kind of where we are right now.
So what we want to do is
Thank
do
you,
this
Norman.
next piece, do a good study, get some good data back and figure out what may or may not be prudent next steps kind of moving forward. As you and Andy probably knows better than anybody, Northern's under as a part of their either 1041 or 404, but 1041, they've got to figure out how to do some nutrient removals from the stream. So they're certainly interested in talking to us about another long-term partnership, and that's fine. There'll be an appropriate place for that. But in the meantime, setting up the scope, taking a good look at our operations, taking a good look at our plant, look at our water modeling, and maybe even some work around a conceptual design will really, I think, from my own point of view, help us to make some intelligent decisions about what may be next steps kind of coming. So,
Because Joe, you mentioned this briefly. I mean, we've got to look at capacity also, right? I mean, we're
Yeah.
now.
Yes.
at the point where we
Yes,
gotta
sir, that's
begin
correct.
with what our-
Yeah, and we're not short on capacity based on what we discharge. We're short on capacity based on what you guys have sold on the books.
Right.
So, and with hope, us updating this will gain, I don't know, say from 500 to 1,000 taps.
Because Winter Park also, obviously.
That would be split between all three districts.
Right.
so any concerns or objections about us heading down this path?
And then is there any discussion yet about, because this is another full-time person, right?
No, that's why I'm doing it this way. I'm really, that is my hope. And based on the past, they want us to take over the phosphorus in 20 years. So I was kind of thinking that same conversation might come about with the nitrogen. So I was trying to position ourselves so that that's not the case, that we have another person and
Right.
then we've taken over a headache.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. And I think in talking to Joe, if the board would decide to move down that path, which may be prudent, we certainly want to take care of ourselves, not just on the capital upfront cost, but also what those, no pun intended, downstream obligations are to us to keep the thing going and keep the thing moving forward. So, yeah.
And I'm still just a little confused about what effect, I mean, we had a cast meeting here a number of years ago, call it Association of Ski Towns. And we had a bunch of wastewater engineers in the room. We were having this discussion and I asked that group, can we consider water diversion as a point source pollutant? And they agreed that it was because part of the solution to pollution is dilution.
Mhm.
So it does become more challenging, from my understanding, to treat our water, the less water there is in the stream.
Yes,
Okay,
But-
I think that's one of the things we got to keep an eye on.
It's at the state health department, water rights are classified and looked at differently than water pollution.
Right.
So in hearings, testimonies and that, for temperature is the big issue to me. That's the one I cannot control.
Exactly.
And that's basically on
That's flow.
that
flows,
is
yeah.
the flow. The cleanliness of the water is going to be so clean. That's just the way it is. Most of the limits that we meet are general limits nationwide by the EPA.
And they won't
So-
change much according to how much hot water is in the stream when we put
No.
it in there. So,
Temperature, now that is a big issue.
yeah,
And the fact that we make up 27%,
Exactly.
that's a tough one when you have other municipalities or other entities that are at 2% or less than 2% or 1%.
yeah.
It certainly has a, huge influence on you.
So how much are we warming the water up as we move it through the plant?
I need it warm to get into the plant. So I start off I try to be as warm as possible, which
Right.
is, I
we
deal
do
in,
have- we do
I'm in Celsius, Andy, I'm sorry,
No,
but
that's
it's,
okay.
plus I think conversion wise, it's like 55 to 57 degrees.
But,
It's 10
but-
degrees Celsius.
So this is where the solution to pollution is dilution. This is working against us having less water in the stream.
Yes.
Because we're introducing warm water back into the stream again.
That
If there were
is the
more
one.
water, then it would help the temperature situation.
Yes.
But does the state health look at that at all?
Uh,
We're just looking at the chemical composition. of the
I don't
wastewater,
know.
aren't they?
I mean, I went down and testified at the hearing for it, and that was 15 years ago.
Yeah,
We haven't got a temperature standard yet. So, and I think they've just drafted a couple for a few districts.
okay.
And so I
It's
can't
still a
really,
pending question.
yes.
Yeah,
The
gotcha.
nutrient one is too with phosphorus and nitrogen.
Yeah,
I mean, they're coming to realize that Blue River, all the water and sewer plants on that stretch, they've been pulling out all the phosphorus for a number of years. Well, now they're having problems with the fishery because there's no nutrients in the river. So the science is still pretty wide open that I don't think anybody really knows exactly what X or Y are yet.
Yeah. complicated.
That's what I hear my kids say. It's complicated, Dad. All right. Well, thank you. We appreciate it. And Joe, again, thank you for your help and leading this effort and keeping me inside the walls I need to be kept inside. So look forward to getting those results. I think there was a schedule in there. They probably, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, I think they wanted this turned around and done. I know we're a little later than what was in here, but May or June, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, the end of May.
Into May. So with the schedule now, it may drift into June, but I think that hopefully we'll have some good data back by then.
It's a lot of progress. And has it been 2 months since you guys came to us when they thought that they were finished?
Yes. Yes,
It's
ma'am.
awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
But
lot of work.
they put the right crew up here.
That's great.
Made a difference, didn't it?
Great, thanks, Joe.
That's all I have here.
Okay, and then public, we're going to take a 10-minute break and come back and open our meeting, so.
Absolutely.
And then for the guests that just showed up, if you can sign in.
Library people.
Starting video, and we are recording. You ready? We are ready. We are live. I'd like to call to order the Town of Fraser's regular board meeting on March 17th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Can I please have the roll call?
Katie Souls.
Brian Cirkvenick.
Andy Miller.
Parnell Quinn.
Paul Vanderham with, Brian.
I don't see.
Andy has asked that you're.
Is your mic on?
Thank you. Sorry. Andy has asked that we remove from the consent agenda the Grand County Hazardous Mitigation Plans. We'll add that to discussion and as item E. So can I have a approval of the agenda with that change?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? And now can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, which now just includes the minutes from March 3rd?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. We are now at discussion and possible action. Before we go that, I want to thank everybody for coming. If there is a place where we open up, at open forum, we'll have you raise your hand, virtual hand, and then we'll allow you to speak for the allotted time later in the meeting. So Grand County Library District update. See lots of us.
Thank you so much for hosting us all today. Each year, we typically go around and just give the towns an update as far as what's going on in your library with our library district. Last year, we missed you, and I'm sorry about that. Pandemic got in the way. I'm joined today. I'm Polly Gallagher. I'm the Executive Director with Grand County Library District. It's great to see so many familiar faces. First time presenting in the side of the community. I have with me Jeanette McQuay, who is the branch manager of our Fraser Valley Library branch. And we were joking, she's a teenager now. She's been with Grand County Library Districts 13 years as of last week.
All right.
You wouldn't believe it.
Thank you, Jeanette.
And I also have with us Sally Leclerc, who is our Grand County Library District Board President. And I'd like to start with Sally, if you don't mind just saying a few words.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored. I know a few people, and some of you know my family, which drew us here 5 years ago. And at that time, my daughter said, you should be on the library board, there's an opening. And then Jeanette came after me. And then within a year, I was made president. And you don't need to hear this, that this year was like any other year. But Polly has not had a normal year in her 23 months of service with us. It has been one thing after another. But we are so blessed with the wonderful team that she has led. And it has been a team. They have all worked so hard to meet the health standards and mitigation and to get people back into the library. Denver Library just opened up this month to people coming in. My son and his family live on the East Coast. They bemoan every time I say, oh, look what we got from the library. And now I'm going to read this to the grandson on a Zoom FaceTime visit. And they say, you can get in your library? So we have been blessed. And I turn it off.
Nice.
So I believe you have a PDF in your packet from us of various pictures and things like that. If you don't mind, I'll just kind of nod our way through it. So if you could go ahead and turn this next slide, we'll take a look at what's been going on with Grand County Library District. And as we're aware, there's been many, many things happening in the United States and the world in 2020. And none more, go ahead, than in our own local community with both the COVID pandemic and then the wildfires that have so drastically hit our community, particularly on this end, the Williams Fork. We were watching it out our windows, debating what to do with our materials and things as we go. And then the East Troublesome Fire. And I'm so pleased that Jeanette took up the gauntlet on that as well with her library. And we shifted resources from Grand Lake, from Hot Sulphur, Granby, and we're acting as a point through the library and working with Outbreak of Kindness to be able to get resources and materials, library materials, as well as keeping people engaged in the hotels. with things to do. So they weren't just sitting in their hotel room worried about that fire. Good. Gcld marched forward, right, as we do in 2020. And while our community closed up with the pandemic, we were fortunate that Greene County Library District sought ways to develop our staff through work at home opportunities, professional development, as well as to figure out ways to help support the wellness of the community by getting resources into people's hands. And as we say, through it all, Gcld marched forward. We had a few big district projects that took place this year. One of them was a community needs assessment, all online, all virtual, as you can imagine, but just taking a look at how we've been doing and what are some areas that we have room for growth. We received great feedback on our early childhood programs, our resources for adults, our school age programs, but found we had some gaps, particularly with teens and older adults. And in considering being asked to consider, rather than drawing people solely into the library, where can the library go to meet people where they are? We implemented a new privacy policy, which covered much of our electronic resources, as well as personal privacy, which is extremely important in library and library law. Fortunately, we had written disaster plans last year or in 2019 and got to really test them out full force in 2020 with training and opportunities as well as real life experience. We were pleased to complete a job analysis program that determined that some of our jobs descriptions weren't up to date, as well as our salary scale, and comparing that to other like positions, both in the county and throughout the state. And then we also looked at expanding the type of resources we have. When people think books or library, they think books. And Gcld has done a phenomenal job to expand that through our Access Grand program. You can check out tickets to go to local events such as the Grand Concert Series, the music, the jazz concerts, various ski areas, the rec center, as well as some items in Denver, which is great. I know I've been stuck down in Denver. It was a Friday evening, ski traffic. Ooh, ticket to the Botanic Garden. I can get 6 people in with that one ticket online from Greene County Library District. There you go.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So yeah, there's some great ones, the Museum of Nature and Science and other places. Good. But our key thing, our key role in the community is to serve our community. So let's just go ahead and take a look at some of the things that people think of us. So books, right? People think books, they think library books. We had over 115,000 checkouts last year. And I want you to keep that in mind, that that's the 2020 pandemic year. We had some days that we were closed, some weeks that we were closed, but as soon as we could, we were out there with a drive-through window at Granby, and then also curbside service at our other branches. The silent patient was our #1 checkout as we took a look through there. We have this library of things. I mentioned Access Grand. We also have the Checkout State Parks Pass. Every week, at least one family from Greene County was exploring our state parks through this program. And it includes a backpack with binoculars, the state park pass, as well as various wildlife books and things. A lot of fun. I've used it several times. Well, people were in the mood for DVDs, right? And of our top 100 checkouts, 96 of them are DVDs. Keep in mind, DVDs only have a 1-week checkout. So of course, we've got more circulation going compared to books with 3 weeks. But with that, Joker was our #1 checkout that we saw. And online resources are vibrant with Greene County Library District. We just added the Denver Post last year. And I think it wasn't until February, March that we had that. 44,000 checkouts of the Denver Post alone. And so you think about that, that's about 350 of our Greene County residents who are using that. We just added the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. We also have a wonderful database collection on there where you can check out newspapers like Sky High News, but from towns all over the US. They have college newspapers. It's a lot of fun. I can't remember how many thousands are in Newsbank, but it's a great resource, fun to use. RB Digital is a magazine service that we have. It's now being combined with our Libby online, which is our ebook software. And with RB Digital, you have about 3,000 magazines you can get access to. My family's from England. My dad loves cricket. He is a non-resident Greene County library card holder, and he gets his monthly cricket magazine now through Libby. I love it. some good things come out of the pandemic, right? Go ahead. So when I talked, excuse me, when I talked to our branch managers about what sort of things they're most proud of, most pleased with Grand County Library District from 2020, 3 areas that popped up were adaptability, early literacy, and community collaborations. And so Jeanette, I'm going to invite you up here and we're going to tag team on this next section. So take it away.
All right. Hello, everyone. I think I know most of you. I'm Jeanette McQuaid, the branch manager, as Polly mentioned, and just want to thank you really for having us here. It's always good to see you guys in person. So I just want to talk a little bit about adaptability. As you know, everyone in the private sector and government, Grand County Library District also had to make large adaptations this year. Some of it was in operations, so the hand sanitizing, the capacity, the arrows, directional arrows, all that you're familiar with. And the other area was really how to engage with the public. So we kind of had to shift the way we did library services, programming, and making those connections with the community. So kind of just moving around the little frame here. Over on that middle section, you can kind of see Juniper Library, but we did go to curbside service as soon as we could so that we can get books in the hands of people. And then we did take and makes in lieu of programming. So we kind of did these craft kits that people could take, and they were very intentional for STEAM activities. Some of them were crafts just for fun, but we try to keep all of those early literacy skills going out to the public, just in place of having live programming. You might recognize some faces saluting in there, Eileen. So we did do things like obstacle courses so that we can get people outside physically moving. Those obstacle course, that obstacle course actually was intended for the kids, and we did find that the adults really loved it the most. I mean, they would come into the library really invigorated. But as Polly mentioned, as soon as we could, we did open the doors with some limited services. We did the picture of the outside, that's Cataract Lake. We had some field trips, so to say, and we did some collaborations with Grand Beginnings, and we just switched, from online to virtual. So we kind of just had to adapt the way we were connecting. And then you can move on to the early literacy. I'll let Polly talk about that.
This is something I'm truly, truly proud of with Grand County Library District and what they've been doing to support young children in our community and building up for school readiness, as well as providing resources to caregivers. So early on in the pandemic, Grand Beginnings and Grand County Library District were discussing ways that we can work together to support the district and support children. We were doing digital story time, but by about June, I think it was, our numbers for participation in Storytime had really dropped. People were zoomed out. And so we thought, what can we do? What can we do? Well, Jeanette came up with the fantastic idea, you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, of the Storytime Stroll. And with the Storytime Stroll, I'll let you, do you mind just saying a little bit about that?
Sure. So basically, it was just the idea to have a self-paced, socially distanced activity, but book as well, that people can just walk through. So it's outside of the library. It does get knocked down in the wind, but so it's basically just a book. And then there's a little section on the bottom that has an activity to get you from one page to the next. And we really we had such a great response to it. I know we presented at some statewide webinars. We were in some statewide webinars, and people were just like, wow, what's that? And so, it kind of got a nice stamp throughout the state as well. So it was, just something, really exciting for us to offer. So we do have that as well. If you guys they're movable. So if you are hosting some summer activities or music in the park, it's something that we can gladly bring by and kind of have an activity for the families and kids as well. So.
Working with Grand Beginnings, we also put together some early literacy sensory kits, which are available for checkout at our library. So we've now expanded. We have a variety of robotics, electronics, art, mathematics, fractals, different kits that you can take home. That was one of our ways to help support some of the families that are doing online schooling, or to give some tactile support to our families in the community. Anyone in our community. The Minute to Win It one is a great, if you're looking for a family Zoom night games, those are it. We also worked with Grand Beginnings to do drive-through Readiness Fests. And basically, parents or caregivers would pull their vehicle up, and we invited mountain families, Horizons, the school districts, and various other entities to come. And each of us would drop in a bunch of resources, chat with the parents, say hi to the kids, and then they go on to the next one. And we actually had one up here at Fraser Library, a couple in Granby, one out in Kremling, and also up at Grand Lake. With Growing Readers Together, we say it quite a bit. That's a grant we first received 2 years ago. And with that, we focused it at Granby with Meet the Expert Storytime and Storytime being offered on Saturdays. It was so well received that not only is the State Library imitated our program and created it as a video series to share out with other libraries, but last year they said, oh, no, we want you, you applied for 5,000, we want to give you 10.
Yay!
This year we said, okay, we're good to go. We're not going to apply for it. We'll let other libraries. Oh, no. We want to give you 7,000 at least. Please apply. So we just received that, which is exciting.
Nice.
All that goes into resources for our caregivers and families.
Okay. And yeah, so this next little piece is just about the community connections that shifted a little bit too, but we didn't want to lose those ties from people not being able to come into the library, or just, you know, even when we were open, maybe they were vulnerable or didn't want to, you know, risk coming in. But we did try to keep those engagements strong. So in the upper right corner, you can see we hosted a Gcld Art Contest. That's one of the new designs for our library card. So you can come in and get a card, and you get to choose which art of the winners. We did some outreach with different organizations, like Polly said, the Readiness Fest, and some drive-through events to reach out to the community that way. We did try to keep art. Our community room where we normally host art was closed, but we still reached out to artists and had some kind of banquet tables set up, and it was just right in the entryway and really just brightened a lot of moods as people were walking in. And then it was also a really nice way to engage with artists, to keep them being able to present their work to the community. So that was actually really exciting. We participated with the Fraser River Valley Lions Club in the International Peace Poster Contest, and the elementary school, they do that every year. All the 5th graders do their peace posters. So we were able to still host that. Over in West Grand, you can see Cliffview. Those girls out there are amazing. But they were able to do outreach to the Cliffview Assisted Living Center. Of course, we have the Check Out the Music program. So if you want to check out, you guys can have a band if you'd like to head over and check out all of that stuff. And then, like Polly did mention, we kind of triaged just library services with the East Troublesome fire, and we kind of offered some, we switched our Wi-Fi to 24/7. So we were trying to really help people that were checking evac notices, and just really trying to stay connected. And I will say, it's just that, that probably it's also rewarding, but really, I think kind of filling that gap for the isolated and lonely public was kind of my most rewarding, piece of staying connected. And so, yeah, now we're looking forward to kind of inching our way back to full services, but I won't let the cat out of the bag on that yet. So I don't want to speak before it's too soon, but yeah, so thank you guys so much.
All right, thank you.
So we have just a couple more things coming up to entice you with. April 4th through 11th is National Library Week, and we have a week chock full of different programs. The Mountain Bike Club, we have a couple teens that are going to do programs on getting your bike ready for riding this year. We have the Grand County Blues Society is doing an online program that'll highlight some of the instruments we have available. Jack Kerouac is coming to Fraser Valley Library, and we're going to have a Jack Kerouac talk. It's Howard Neville, local sculptor, has a bronze sculpture made that's going to be featured at Grand County Library for the month of April. And we have a lot of other wonderful things happening that week. Also, April 28th, those of you who are improv aficionados or first timers, please join us. We have a great program April 28th. And May 23rd, we have So the very last event that took place in Grand County before it was shut down was with our foundation, and we hosted Peter Heller, national bestseller author. Well, we're going to open Grand County, and May 23rd, we have author Martin Smith with his book Going to Trinidad. He's going to conversation with an author. So we're looking forward to that, and we're looking forward to a great year. Just going to end, last couple notes. One of the wonderful things about Grand County Library District and is receiving comments of the appreciation. And I'm so thankful for our community and providing those comments. With this last one, I had to laugh. We've been, some of our health and human services organizations, Department of Health, Rural Health, they haven't been able to meet with clients on their site. So they've been using our meeting rooms in order to meet. We've been providing space for testing at the schools, things like that, just trying to give that additional space. I was over at Granby Library, and a guy pulled up to the drive-through window and said, "Oh, my girlfriend stopped by yesterday to pick up the Minute to Win It kit, take a make, but it wasn't available. Do you guys have them yet?" Like, he came back the next day in order to check to see. I just love that connection. We've received some lovely cards of gratitude, thoughts saying, "Thank you for always taking care of me," and adapting the situation is the name of the game. So with that, thank you so much for allowing us to serve and for your support. We very much appreciate it.
All right. Good job, ladies.
Thank
Good job.
Any questions? We're happy to answer. You're welcome to come visit us. We're open tomorrow, 10 to 4.
Yes. I'll be in Glenwood fishing, but
There we go.
I won't be there, but and really, please, you're all more than welcome to come. I'll give you a little tour if you'd like, but if you don't have a card, please get a card, think about it. And then as well, just check out the website, gcld.org. That's where a lot of those amazing things are happening. A lot of those online access grant. I think I saw you recently were at the zoo.
I was at the zoo.
Yeah, so you could have had tickets there. But anyway, so yeah, just
Do you
check
have,
us out.
I could have got
provided that
tickets.
Oh, and I do have one more thanks. I don't, maybe I'm wrong, but did we get new library directional signs this year? For the town?
Don't know.
Oh, I don't know. I felt like I drove by one day and
Oh.
the sign looked kind of cracked, and like the week later it was like fresh and
Oh.
new. So anyway, if that's the case, thank you very much.
Good job, town.
Anyway,
Wherever
thanks.
that
Our signage looks great, is what I'm trying to
Thank
say.
you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Thanks, ladies.
Thanks,
Have a
ladies.
great
for
day.
coming
Thank
out.
you very much. That's awesome.
Very awesome. I guess I need to. I need to
Leading the way
reactivate
in
my card or
Colorado. Good work.
something. Next is resolution 2021-0304 Colorado Main Street Program. Is Sarah going to?
Actually, before we look at that, the Colorado Main Street team is here to give a little presentation. So Catherine Trotter actually brought this program to my attention when I first started working for the town. I would like us to apply to become a Colorado Main Street community. I'll just let the team go through and explain what it is, how it would benefit us, et cetera. And then eventually, if we do apply for this, I'll need your blessing. And that's what that resolution is for. Gail Langley. And they're probably going to have to share the screen too. Like, you might have to make them a co-host. So, oh, you did? Okay. All right.
Can you
All right,
can you see
go.
the screen? Okay.
Thank you, Tracy.
Gail, you're still on mute. Gail also needs to be unmuted if possible. Or I can go ahead. Oh, there she is.
There we go. We got it.
All right.
Well, hello, everyone. I see a few familiar faces. You can go to the next slide, Tracy. I am just so impressed by what the Grand County Library District has done and has continued to do throughout the pandemic. I used to be very involved with the Friends of, and actually had the opportunity to do a couple of fundraising events for them at the Grand Lake Yacht Club. So very near and dear to my heart. I go back many years in Grand Lake. I still call that my home. And thankfully, it did not burn down through the fires. Thank you to all the people in the county, Fraser included, for everything that you guys did during that horrific situation. But I reside now in Denver part-time, working for the Department of Local Affairs as the Colorado Main Street Coordinator. But my roots, to get to this position were all because I was the Main Street Manager in Granby, Colorado, which is a Main Street program. And I worked there for 5 years, wearing multiple hats, Chamber, Main Street, and Visitor Center, and then moved to the state in order to help our rural communities make a difference in, achieving their dreams and visions for their downtown. So with that, I'll let Tracy introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Tracy Stoffel. I'm the Main Street Specialist with DOLA. First, I just want to echo Gail's comments about your library. That was just an amazing presentation, and books are very near and dear to my heart. And I have a good friend who has said, if you want to know a community, visit their library. And I can just tell by that presentation, how great the communities are in Grand County from your libraries. I've been with DOLA for almost 2 years now. Prior to that, I was with the Colorado Municipal League for 13 years. And before that, I was with the statewide historic preservation nonprofit Colorado Preservation, Inc. For 5 years. So I've kind of been around the Main Street movement for a long time now, and just really excited to be a part of it and helping communities establish their vision for their downtowns and small businesses.
So our third, triad of the team, because we're a lean, mean team of 3, is Larry Lucas. He is our preservation architect, and he was not able to make this call. I think he's currently getting his twin 5-year-olds ready for bed because his wife had another appointment tonight. So you get 2 out of 3, which is not bad, but this is the team, the Main Street team that is housed within DOLA. Next slide. So just a little bit of background, and we want to keep this fairly short. We've gone through this presentation with Sarah and Catherine and some of their key stakeholders in the group. This is a national movement that's been around since 1980 and taken a few refresh courses along the way. But within Colorado, we have actually, this is obsolete because we got an affiliate application from you, along with a letter of support. We have 51 communities throughout the state, and I'll show you a map here in a minute. And again, the program is housed within the Department of Local Affairs, which I think most of you are familiar with. So let's just show a map of where we are. So I'd love to see a star of Fraser on here. When I was in Grand County and working for the Chamber in Granby, we did a lot of foundational work back in the day of trying to get Grand Lake, Granby, Kremling, and Winter Park all together, and made huge strides with CTO and the marketing efforts for the county. But when Sarah and Catherine approached the program, I was so excited because I think this program could be a great foundation for you to garner that community support, which you're going to hear about in a minute from Tracy on how the program works. And I want to add that star to the map. It's a personal passion of mine. Next slide. Take it away, Tracy.
So just a little bit about the Main Street approach. It really is about the community vision for the downtown. DOLA's here just to support what the town wants. It's very important to get the buy-in, certainly of town leadership, but also residents, business owners. That's what makes it work is the communities behind it, and it's their vision and it's being implemented. And that's kind of supported by what they call the 4-point approach. And here are the 4 points of the program. It's about organization, right? And again, that's about getting everybody together, agreeing on that vision, coming up with a strategic plan to implement it, and moving it forward. And that is about that sense of ownership. I just always want to emphasize this is very much about helping communities do what they want to do for their downtowns. It's grounded in design. As Gail mentioned, it was started by the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and so the design is rooted in historic preservation. But it goes beyond that, right? basically everything that gives your downtown that sense of place, from the banners to the flower baskets to, as we all know in this past year, increasing outdoor spaces for dining, but walkability, wayfinding signs, just everything that just kind of makes your downtown unique, helps identify your downtown as a unique place to be. Economic vitality, I always say that's kind of the whole point of this, but it is also its own point as well, helping fill those empty storefronts, helping your local business owners connect to resources. Again, in the past year, there was a lot of that communication going on. Promotion, bringing people into downtown. Traditionally, that's with events. That's changed to maybe, social media campaigns. Had a great show us your mask challenge in Wellington, for example, but still just trying to make sure that people know that downtown's the place to be, the safe place to be, and how you can support your local businesses.
So with that, just as a little note to you guys, and I'm not going to read this slide, but the one thing that DOLA does not do and the program does not do is we don't dictate organizational structures to our community about how to get launched into the program. As you can see from this slide, you could be a 501c3, a nonprofit, if that what works the best for your town. As it was in Granby, it was housed within the chamber. Quite often, the most typical way people start out in the program is to start with the city and town, because our MOU with any organization or community that wants to join the program is with the city and town. So quite often that's where a point of contact can be, connected, and we can actually start to make sure that the town and the community and the business community are all coming together to work towards that common vision. And then in Windsor, for example, they have a DDA. And in Leadville, this is housed within the county's community development organization. So the point of this slide was we work with you guys to determine what makes sense for you, how you need to be organized, and then we're hand in hand with you all along the way in order to get a steering committee together to make that happen. So this is what you get. I mean, that's always a question. We want to put it out there up front. Once you are adopted into the program as an official community, you get a 5-year contract with DOLA for mini grants. When you enter the program, that is at the $2,500 level, which helps you do, smaller little improvement projects. And we're going to show you a slide on what some of those examples have been over the last 4 years. And the second thing you get is a 5-year scholarship commitment. Because in the memorandum of understanding that we sign with you, we do require 2 trainings per year, one being the annual Main Street Managers Summit that we host in the fall, and the National Now Conference, which is coming up in April. We know money is tight, budgets are tight. We give you money to do that. We don't ask you to take that out of your pocket. And this year, with everything, or the last year, everything being virtual, it's really opened up a lot of other money there for board members or steering committee members to actually attend things like the Saving Places Conference or get involved with DCI. So that money is yours to use in the best way for professional development that you see fit based on what your needs are. And then the rest of these on there, probably one of the biggest services I think that we give to the communities is our consultant fund. And we work with communities about what you need. Typically, when you enter the program, it might be more in the organizational point that Tracy talked about, developing a really functioning board of directors or steering committee, getting together a vision and mission that aligns with the town's master plan, comp plan, getting the business community to come alongside. We handle all of the administrative work with all those contracts, and we work with communities individually to identify what you need, and then we make that happen. And then we do technical assistance, training, webinars. We do resource creation all the time. But then not to be overlooked is being plugged into that 2,200 communities nationally as a network. I can guarantee you that if somebody is experiencing a problem or they're looking for a template or a sample contract, being part of the program, you can plug into that national network and take advantage of everybody else's brain power. Tracy, you want to cover mini grants?
Sure. So here's just kind of a quick little list of what people have been using their mini grants for in the past year. For the most part, it's to implement those kind of tangible things that improve your downtown. So anything from those banners in Meeker, they had the high school students design them and printed them up, and just fabulous, to EV stations, alleyway improvement projects. People have used them for the website. Gail will talk about another option with that in terms of the consulting funds. But basically anything that's kind of a permanent investment into the town in the program is eligible for our mini grants.
And this I just put up there. This is the variety of projects, kind of summarizing a lot of individual community related projects versus the organizational pieces that I talked about. This is a representation of the consulting services that we provide to our communities. Typically, these contracts run anywhere from about $8,000 to the last one I just awarded last week was about $35,000. We work with you on what you need and make sure the foundation of the program is intact, and then we tailor and handle all the administration of those contracts moving forward to make sure that you get deliverables that are going to be worthwhile. We just launched a parking assessment, for example, in Leadville that has some major issues with parking and snow removal, and wanting to get a community plan in place. That's a fairly large project for them, but that's the kind of thing that you can expect from the Main Street program if you elect at some point in time to enter the program. Will help you all along the way. And I know Fraser's been working so hard. You've got so much development and so much change up there that really coming together and establishing that long-term community vision. Main Street can come alongside and help you with that. Tracy, you want to cover some of the prerequisites so they know what they're...
Sure. Yeah, so these are kind of the things that we're asking our communities to have in place in order to become an official candidate community within the program. And some of these, I'm sure Gail will emphasize in a minute here, are things that we can help out our who we see as really serious candidates that just kind of need that extra help to get there. The things that you would need to focus on is getting, again, those right people in the room. What kind of structure are you going to have? Establishing that steering committee and board of directors, making sure that those volunteers and any staff are kind of up to date on what the program is, what those 4 points are, how they kind of work together. We do need a primary point of contact, just so we know who's responsible for, all of the different reporting things that go on. Let's see, and here are some of the things that, we can help out with potentially. A multi-year strategic plan, again, establishing that vision. The advisory committee that reviews the applications, that's something they look at. The awareness, again, of the community. Can't say that enough. This is about what the community wants in the community program. And then the support from the public and private sectors, and hence the need for a resolution from the town board. But that can also be demonstrated from letters of support. Your library would probably be a great example of that, as to who might support your Main Street. So, but again, it's basically really kind of establishing that organization, establishing that ownership of the program within the community is what we're looking for in that application.
Yeah.
And then, oh, did you want to touch on this, Gail?
No, I was just going to say, and we are here as a staff to work with you all along the way. We've had a lot of conversations with Sarah, and Catherine's been involved in some of those. Once you want to get plugged into the program, we help you meet those prerequisites. You're not in this alone, and we can also provide you some consulting services to help to get your crew in your steering committee, you know, all engaged and all excited about the vision and the future for Fraser. So it's not just an application that you submit and we review. Once you are interested in the program, we are here as your team to get you into the family, the Main Street family, and make sure that you're successful. And I just can't emphasize that enough because the methodology works.
And that is something that we didn't talk to too much about in terms of the benefits, but yeah, we are here as our support for our communities to succeed. Larry specifically in those design areas, Gail and I, basically any question you have, send it to the team. And if we don't know the answer, we'll try to find it or find someone who does.
Absolutely.
And again, of course, you know, you get a lot and you know, we expect a little bit back from you, and most of it's maintaining that organization, that support and communication between the government and the program, the leadership in the program, staying trained. Again, that's why we provide the scholarships, hosting us once a year so that we can just kind of touch base as to what's going on, that memorandum of understanding that Gail mentioned. And so you can kind of see here, we do have some quarterly reports that we ask for, and basically those are to kind of help us ensure that you're staying on track, you're staying within, you know, staying organized and staying focused. It's really helpful for you as much as it is a requirement to us.
And I can't emphasize enough that this program really is a partnership between the local municipality, your business community, and your stakeholders, and bringing all those together to work succinctly. And when you do that, amazing things can happen. I just can't speak highly enough of this, otherwise I wouldn't be in this role. So we wanted to do this really quick. We're certainly open for questions and you know, anything you guys want to ask since you have a resolution on the table.
Thanks a lot for that presentation, guys. This is new to me, but I'm very, very interested in it. I think it could be a great thing for Fraser. I'm curious, for the town staff, have we brought this to the attention of the Fraser Winter Park Chamber? Or is this just something that we are?
This is just something that we, like the town of Fraser, would be working on. Because in my head, like we're two different towns, and I think our identity is very different from Winter Park, and I think it's good that we are different, but it's good that we're identified as different too.
And I guess if I could chime in, Catherine Trotter, I've really been trying to get some support for this program for many, many years. And there was some discussion several years ago with the town of Winter Park and seeing if the chamber could kind of be that point person. But I think, like Sarah said, we've kind of, you know, morphed into kind of doing more of our own thing. But I'm really excited to work with this group, and I think that there are many benefits to the town.
Have we had any discussion of possible combination of this with the Economic Development Committee?
So I spoke both with the Public Arts Committee and the Economic Development Committee. And the one really great thing about this program is it overlaps with a lot of the stuff that they've been wanting to do and talking about and their projects. For example, wayfinding and, you know, new banners for downtown and new Christmas lights and all of that stuff. So
It seems like one of the heaviest lifts here is to try and start a new organization. And it seems like we already have that organization.
Right.
So,
And,
yeah.
you know, a lot of the people that would be on this initial steering committee, it's a combination of those groups.
Of those two groups, yeah.
And I'd like to get somebody from planning on there too, but I don't know where
Yeah.
the interest is from them.
I'm real excited about it. One of the things that jumps out at me is we've got our zoning in place, we've got a lot of our planning in place for the Riverwalk district, but we still are missing that last piece of trying to actually put this together. This could be a real central project for this group. So,
Right.
and along with the regular, I mean, is it okay that our main street is called Xerox?
Sure.
But anyway, along with Main Street itself, obviously this is a community-wide effort.
Right.
And the one area that I think has some of the greatest promise for Fraser and being unique is a Riverwalk district.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
And that historical perspective, Eileen and I both sat in on the presentation from the library district. And they're in the process of working on, not library, on the historical district. Thank you. Catherine was there. Anyway, they're looking at their long range plan and talked, Catherine could address it more too, but our local library, museum, and all that history, and this ties into history and historical preservation. And we could also turn that into the Fraser Historic District.
yeah,
And make that the part of Fraser that's really unique. So if in the future we did decide to become one municipality for the whole end of the valley, we could be the Fraser Historic District. It's a thought. And they'll help us with analyzing our parking. And I think parking is going to be a big issue for us. So I'm excited about it. I think it's great.
I'm reminded of, I went to England a couple of years ago, and they have these English country towns that have just become such a thing that they're literally parking ramps and huge parking structures and just wall to wall people walking through what used to be just, I was in England in the early 1970s, and this was my first trip back a couple of years ago. And I remember these quaint little villages where you could have a pub, go into the pub, and I was hitchhiking in those days, so I'd sleep out in the field, but it was just a little English town. And now they're huge tourist attractions. And I don't want to go to that extent. That's the extent Breckenridge has gone to, but at least have enough
They're
of
coming.
a mass to bring people here
Yeah.
would really help our businesses and help this community really focus in on who we are. So I'm real excited about this. I think it's a great idea. I really want us to look to our existing resources, our
Absolutely.
wonderful Economic Development Committee and our EDAC and our Arts Committee. I think I'm really glad you talked to them, Sarah. I think that's a great core group to really get this thing off so that we don't tax our mayor with putting together yet another group.
Yeah, we don't need another group. Okay. Wonderful.
Great. Any
I'll
other?
just add one more thing. I'm sorry, I interrupted someone. I'm sorry.
Go.
I was just going to say, as an affiliate, and regardless of your resolution, there's no commitment or no obligation at that point as you guys get organized and want to kind of develop this, partnership with some of your stakeholders in your community. It's just a way to get you started, and we'll work with you all along the way. So no pressure from us.
Thank you so much for your presentation. So I
Thanks,
think, Mayor,
Gail.
the first step to do this would be the resolution that's in front of you, should the board want to entertain that. I want to say a special thanks to Sarah and Kathleen for all their hard work. They're the one, Catherine, sorry, to advance this. They've certainly been beating on my door over the past weeks and months, trying to get my attention. So here it is, but thanks to them and their hard work in advancing this. So thank you, Mayor.
Great. Thanks for the presentation.
I'd like to make a motion.
Tracy.
Yeah, go for it.
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 2021-0304 on Colorado Main Street.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. That was a
Yeah,
great
thank you all.
presentation.
That's exciting.
Super exciting.
We
Timing's
look
perfect.
forward to working with you, okay?
Yeah, it'll be
Indeed,
great.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Tracy.
Okay, next is the Fraser Valley Arts Update. Steve Fitzgerald, I see him on there.
Yep.
Hey, Steve, you want to unmute Steve, Michael?
There we go. I was hoping that somebody would zap me with the unmute. So first of all, congratulations, everybody, for passing that. It's a program that we were privileged to have a review from Sarah, Gail, Tracy, et cetera, and wholeheartedly support from a public arts committee standpoint. So I think that's a real positive. That's not why I'm here tonight, though. In one capacity, I chair the PAC, as you know. But in the other capacity, I have been asked to and accepted the mantle to lead this organization that we call Fraser Valley Arts, which is a 501c3 that was largely emanated out of course, the town of Fraser and the work that many of you were involved in to have a vision for a creative arts center. So tonight, what I wanted to do is just give you a quick, and I mean like 5-minute update on where that activity is and what we plan on doing over the remainder of this year. And it's mostly just so that you as the town board have that information and so that we can collaborate as we go forward. As I mentioned to you, am engaged both in the PAC and in this 501c3. And of our 5 board members, 2 others, Callie McDermott and Lisa Baird, also sit on the PAC. The other 2 board members are Diane Butler and Echo, whose last name, even though I grew up in a Greek church, I can't quite get, so I will forgive me, but she's the art teacher at Middle Park High School down in Granby. Those are our 5 volunteer board members. We have incorporated as a 501c3 with the help of course, the town, and have largely done everything that's required to meet that. Tim Day is working on the final filing for us.
Nice.
So it does exist. It is a place that donations can now come to. And we were largely seed funded through the proceeds from the Mural Festival the last 2 years. So we have those meager but terrific startup resources in our bank account. Where we plan to go on this, as you know, the ultimate goal is to have a vibrant artistic activity going on, centered in Fraser, but spreading up and down the valley, and embodied by a $10 to $12 million art center for which there is a very good creative vision. Going from where we are today, 0, to that seems like an awfully big step. And so rather than starting to go right after charitable donations in pursuit of the actual brick and mortar, the strategic choice that we've made after consultation with a number of other not-for-profit art organizations in the state is to walk before we run. And what I mean by that is over the course of this year, we're going to be doing a number of things to establish traction in the sense of programming and events that give future investors, future philanthropic donors, both a sense of where we're headed, but also credibility for the newly formed 501c3. One of them is in conjunction with the PAC and the town. You all have funded, and we're very grateful for this, an architectural assessment of the old church. So we can see what we can do to expand that very quickly to become a hub of our art center and activity until we build the new building. And of course, there is also the opportunity to perhaps do something with the mural park, which we're looking into. There are some philanthropically inclined entities in our valley who may be willing to give us some brick and mortar on a temporary basis for that space. And we're pursuing that, knock on wood. Hopefully we'll have some more news about that in a few months. More immediately, our plan is to focus on a couple of areas. Classes, which we're already running through the Fraser Valley Rec District, mostly aimed at young people. We intend to continue to sustain that, but in cooperation with Diane Butler and Grand County, we're soliciting input from artists up and down the valley to see who may be interested in participating and teaching them, and would like to add both adult level and, if you will, graduate level courses that may be a draw for people to come into the valley for artistic learning, much as they do in the Anderson Ranch up Snowmass Way and many other communities in the country. Secondly, several programs that we hope to run this year. One being a plein air event the week after Labor Day, where we will partner with the Colorado Headwaters Land Trust, another not-for-profit organization, and use their properties as subjects and have several events at the end of that week up and down the valley that will be fundraisers to hopefully bring a little money in the coffers and again, bring credibility for the effort. And then a couple things that are in conjunction with the town and PAC. One you know is the Mural Festival. We're going to bring back the festival word this year. And that is largely run through the town, but the proceeds fund the Fine Arts Center. And we're going to be doubling down on something that Sarah and the breweries started last year around Oktoberfest, and rebranding that into Arttoberfest, where we have artists proximate to the breweries so that visitors to the valley have more than one reason to come up, enjoy the businesses that we have, but also then get to see some of the creative spirit that's going on in the valley. Those are intended to be sort of our foundation, so that when we start to turn late this year into next year and solicit dollars from charitable organizations, people, and so forth, that there's some credibility to the work we do. Make no mistake, the goal is a sparkling center in our town that is an example and a reason for many visitors to come and spend time here. But we have to walk a little bit before we run. So that's just a brief update on where we're at, who's involved, all volunteers, tightly intertwined, as you might expect, with the PAC, and a really energetic and excited group. So I just wanted to share that with you. I will obviously be back at certain points throughout the year with more specifics and updates, and just wanted to see if there's any questions or concerns that you all had.
It's fantastic, Steve. Good work getting the 501c3. And so I'm assuming you're the president.
I am.
Thank you.
You bet.
I've been involved with many nonprofits. They make good things happen, and you guys are going for it. It's fabulous.
Yep, it's one of the, thank you very much. It's one of those things where we'll either kind of, naivete is the wrong word. I prefer enthusiasm and optimism. So
yeah, that's what it takes.
Great, thanks, Steve.
Thank you for all your hard work. Appreciate
Wonderful,
it.
yeah, fabulous.
You bet.
Thanks to all.
Do that, and if you don't mind, I'm going to log off and return to the St. Patrick's party that's happening between the Fitzgeralds, O'Neills, and Kavanaughs.
Nice green shirt.
Cheers to you.
Yeah, there you go. Great. Thanks, Steve. Okay.
All right, that's great.
Next is town manager recruitment process
Yes,
update.
all good
I don't know
stuff.
if this is, yeah, it's a great night.
Tonight is all good
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, I love it.
Wow.
It was
Right.
intentional.
It's exciting.
I've ground you through it the last couple of meetings.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have John Stabney from Northwest Cog on the line, and he's going to help lead some of this discussion. But I also want to say thanks to, in particular, Michael and Sarah and Antoinette and others who've really helped John to kind of pull together this process. So I guess, yeah, so I can't say thank you enough to staff for helping. So John, why don't you
Hi, John.
give us an update? Thanks, John.
Everybody,
Hey, John.
you know what's really delightful is in the library conversation, somebody in the background, it might have been one of you, or I'm not sure it was a DOLA person, kept going, wow. Wow.
That was Katie.
That was
Yeah, that was Katie.
I'm gonna vow to do more things with towns that someone in the background is just going, wow.
Agreed. Me too, John. Me too.
Yeah.
It's
Me
cool
too.
stuff. All of it.
Hey, well, let me keep this simple and you guys can choose if you want to make it less simple. So worked with the staff that Wes mentioned on this document. And I didn't know if you got a chance to read it. It's a little wordy, but it does convey in a style that certain of the recruiting firms want to give a little flavor and kind of give some direction and not just general flavor about what's Fraser, which it does that, but also a little insight into sort of what success looks like and what the board's looking for and what the challenges are. So that was the attempt with this.
John, who wrote that?
I wrote parts of it. How about this? I'll take credit for
Wow.
it if you
Wow.
don't like it.
Wow. Wow.
No, it was good. It had a good flavor of the town. I like it.
Good. Well, the really good parts were written by Sarah and Michael. So
And it looked to me like were the job responsibilities pulled right out of Aligned Influence? And those job responsibilities or not?
We did our best to align those. Some of those we had, and some of those were like best practices, but yes, very much so.
Okay, so you had that document in
Yes,
front
ma'am,
of
we
you to
did.
work
Right.
with. Great. I didn't bring it out to compare it, but it sounded like it. I thought, yeah, that's
Yeah.
a lot of responsibilities on a manager to do, so long as he's a good delegator too. You're in charge. If you mess up, we're holding you accountable because.
That's right. And that's fair. That's
But,
how that should work.
yeah.
It is fair.
yeah, so I mean, the job description, the other duties is assigned thing. It's really important. And I know Wes and staff has made a priority of updating job descriptions and being current with what people are actually doing. That's really important HR practice. So this was, aligning now that, you're putting out for a town manager, that exercise, I think. And so I don't know how much managers who maybe have never done the job might read really in detail the job description. I think any manager who's done the job is kind of scan through that and go, yeah, but what does it really take in Fraser? Okay, what are they really looking for? And hopefully this other document gives them a little more insight into that. But I just want to open up to you guys. You're not going to hurt my feelings if you want to delete whole sections of it or, line edit it or, anything in there. I know there was a lot of information you guys gave, was not able to capture all of it, especially the historical stuff I kind of wanted to. And then we had that kind of crazy conversation about the what ifs, remember? And I read through all that, the idea of, a gondola going up to, Winter Park on the slopes and things like that. And I'm like, well, that was an interesting exercise. But it probably didn't, the results of that probably didn't belong here. So, yeah, I'm just going to stop there. And like I said, you're not going to hurt my feelings by any kind of comments about, and now's the time to say you want bigger pictures, you want a different layout, you want to change the wording.
On location requirements, we've got the preference to live within 15 to 20 miles of the Fraser town limits. I've heard from people in the past that they felt really strongly that managers should live in the town of Fraser because then they know what's going on in the town of Fraser. Housing's a little limited within our town limits, but I don't think they should live in Granby and be our manager. So I think that maybe should be a smaller radius.
I'm going to weigh in on this because I think you should talk about this because it will come up. There's a lot to say a person ought to be able to walk their talk, right? Eating and living where they are doing their work. I will say there are other challenges, which is, as you mentioned, actually getting housing. The other is, really, what does it hurt if they're within a certain distance, a 20-minute drive? And I will say, if you want your town manager to be a little fresher on Monday, sometimes not being at the same grocery store and at every single event and running into everybody all weekend long, that's your job. You're the elected people. As long as they're not over the hill and 4 hours away when an emergency comes down, I think that's what you're trying to avoid, is somebody who really is not absent on weekends. So that's my comment. I would say if they live in Grand County, they're probably, close enough, but that's your policy decision.
I've got to agree with John. There's something to be said of being able to walk a little ways away from the community. I mean, it's an intense job, and people are going to hit you pretty hard on a Saturday if you're at Safeway, and sometimes that's good. It's a good education. It helps you out, but sometimes I don't know. My parents were school teachers, and they had to live in the towns where they were school teachers, and they were small towns, and it was tough on them. They wanted to get away sometimes, So I think Granby's not out of the question. I mean, there's more housing opportunity there for sure. So at least at this point, we'll bring more here, obviously, but I don't know. I don't see that as a make or break.
Good.
I agree. I think Granby would be fine.
Okay.
So Fraser
I'm okay
River
with that.
Valley, for instance, maybe being a better definition. Fraser, that would include Winter Park.
Sounds like you can leave it as is.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can leave it as is.
But it's important for you guys to talk about this now before you come, you're face to face with somebody that you've already decided on, you really like, who says, but I really want to live in Summit County or Denver.
Yeah.
No.
That's what you don't want. So you want to define that right here to say what that area is. So that it's very important, So yeah, I don't disagree, John. I can say this just for the record, and John will appreciate this being an old city manager, Toad. My wife in my last permanent gig actually forbade me to go to the grocery store the last 18 months. It just was, she's like, no gallon of milk on the way home, no loaf of bread, because that's a 45-minute endeavor. And she goes, and you're just too kind and you won't interrupt people. You'll let them, have a piece of you. But meanwhile, the family's at home and dinner's getting cold and the kids are wondering where you're at. So there is that, but yet it's important that they understand and live in your community, feel the heartbeat here and understand what the issues are. That's also, John's right. There's a delicate balance and you have to, and you want both, to be honest with you, just being careful with it. So, yeah.
Okay.
And 15 miles actually is only on the edge of Granby.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay.
20 miles makes it all right. So,
Yeah, 20 minutes.
I put that 20 on the outermost.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
But it's your call. I mean, this is your document, so please let us know.
That's fine.
15
Because
to
it will
20.
come up. I can assure you, this will be an important part of the conversations you have with your candidate, and and frankly, just to be honest with you, it'll affect how you compensate and what that looks like.
Right.
Because of that range, there's obviously going to be a direct correlation between what that negotiation looks like and what you're allowing here in this. So there certainly is going to be a correlation there.
So in the high end of the pay and benefits, I'm sure you got those numbers from somewhere, but I'm just
Yes, ma'am.
curious about where.
So thank you for bringing that up. So Beth was gracious enough to go back to Mountain States, and we had them rerun that range just for this position in the last, probably in the last 10 days. So what they did is they provided us two scenarios. One was a more conservative scenario. One was a more aggressive scenario. The more aggressive scenario had some samples in there that just looking through those, we didn't feel were quite applicable to Fraser. So we went with the more conservative version of that. And so out of that is what you have this range. So there's a new state law that requires us to post a salary requirement. It deals with equity issues. And so we're now, it's actually a good idea to do it anyway, but we're now required to do that. This just sets the range. It doesn't dictate to the Board of Trustees what they have to do. And I would strongly urge, and John will know better than I on this, that's tied to your qualifications, who you ultimately wind up talking to, what part of housing does or doesn't play with that. So it just establishes a range by which the board then can entertain and have room to negotiate at this point.
Yeah, and adding to Wes's comments, I'm not privy to, but I would hope that you in the room, so to speak, on the are privy to what your sort of neighboring managers are at, right? For Winter Park, Granby, Grand Lake, maybe a couple others. So I think you've done that comp recently. And if the high end of this looks like something you would never pay, then you probably need to dial it down. Okay. Or the low end, I guess, for that matter too. The low end to me looks very reasonable for a lot of town managers that are in a town that's a going concern, and up from there, you start to get into the well over 150 to 200 numbers. And I see a lot of, county managers and larger town managers, managers of larger towns, not that they are larger, at those numbers. So you're going to set an expectation with a lot of people who read this. If they're like, oh, it looks like 178, that sounds like 180. Oh, Fraser's going to be at 180. It's pretty easy for you to talk down somebody who's just got their Master of Public Administration, been an intern and done, a short stint working for a manager, to talk them down from 178. But, somebody like with Wes's experience coming in is probably going to go, yeah, I'm going to be asking for pretty close to the top. Wes is not throwing his hat in the ring, so he can comment on that. But I mean, I think the reason I say that is an experienced manager is probably going to go, yeah, I've been doing this for X number of years very well. They should want me. If they ask me, then I'm going to be asking pretty close to that. So that's my only caveat to putting those numbers. You need to put numbers in by state law, as Wes said, but you need to be comfortable with these numbers. And before you publish this, I'll stop there.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not unusual too to have in some of these job descriptions too that depending on qualifications, we anticipate starting low to mid or around mid or whatever that is. And so you can also put additional qualifiers in there as well. But I don't disagree with John. You need to be comfortable that this is your range. It's a mountain state number, but that's all that it is as a starting point. So yeah.
Okay, Brian, we don't have Ryan. What's your opinion?
I think it's a pretty large range, so it gives us a lot of wiggle room. So I think I'm totally fine with the numbers that are in there right now.
Okay.
I mean, at the 178 end, we're just going to have to decide if that's a person we want that badly to pay that range. But I think Wes is right. The more experienced, higher powered managers that we may decide we need to have, that's probably what we're going to have to pay them. But we'll just have to have that heart-to-heart discussion with ourselves as a board as to this person brings a fresh outlook and a lower salary. This person brings a lot of experience. Which way do we want to go?
Mm-hmm.
But let's have that discussion when we see these people in front of us.
And I think the other question too is that a number that you would just say, hey, we're giving you that number and that's all that we're giving you. So housing's on you. I mean, there's a number of ways that you can allow this to play out as well, to say, well, you know what, we're not going to provide, like, you were gracious to me and to provide a housing allowance. Well, if someone's pushing up towards the top here and wants that, then you may say, that's fine, but we're only going to give you one piece. And so that's another part that can be a part of the equation and part of the discussion that you have as well.
So that's going to be,
right. Yeah, if we're more aggressive
That's our
here, we're going to
max.
be less aggressive here. Right, correct.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Anyone else?
Now, this might seem kind of silly, but when I look, at the operational responsibilities and be responsible for this and that and all these things that staff does, and the manager tends to oversee or maybe does some of it, does responsibility need to be defined? Or it's kind of silly, but I mean, that's a lot of spelling it out, by saying that they're responsible for all these things. If somebody tended to be more of a, I'm going to do it because I'm responsible versus delegating and overseeing that something is accomplished by staff.
Can I weigh in on this?
Please.
I'm sorry, I can't read body language, so I can't see if somebody.
You can't see me talking with my hands.
Jump on that, but I think it's relatively well understood. It's a great question, Katie, if that was you. It could be seen as amorphous again, but if you really wanted to define all these things as thoroughly and get everything that a manager does in them, this would be 20 pages and not 3. So, you just need to, I think what you're telling is you're signaling like, here are the general scopes of work of town. You do financial management, you do public works, you do water, wastewater, on down the line. And so you got to be comfortable enough to supervise somebody who's doing that, or in a few cases, you may have to step in and do that for a while. You might be the main personnel person at the town. That could be part of the discussion. You're probably not going to be the wastewater treatment operator, but you're going to oversee one. So that hopefully is not completely foreign to you, So I think that's all you're trying to signal with that. And they are ultimately responsible. So, just drilling that down to ground, or whatever the right term is for that. Something goes wrong, and I'm trying not to pick one that somebody might be thinking of, but I'll just stick with wastewater or water. Something really goes wrong with that water plant. Ultimately, the town manager does have responsibility. You've been reviewing that person. You've kept that person in office. You can point fingers all day long as a manager, but your job ultimately is it's your deal. It comes back on your shoulders. So I think that's expressed in here.
I think that's giving a sense of the size of our community. I mean, my family was in the ski lodge business for a long time, and my father told me one time, he said, you got to be ready to get up on the morning on Sunday, 140 people in the house, and the cook walked out in the middle of the night. And that's the size town we have. We have a really good staff, but we want a manager that comes in here that's got pretty good familiarity with the whole operation, because we don't have a lot of backup to our staff. So I think that description gives a good sense of the size and the operation of this community. We're still on the cusp of really being, as we get bigger staffs, we can have more of a manager that has specialties, but we still need pretty much a generalist type
Don't
person.
disagree. Don't
Yeah.
disagree. Don't disagree. And one of the things too, I'd encourage you to do, and then John was good, I know in the process, encouraging you guys to engage me in the interim, is really press in on their management style, because I think you'll get a good feel when you ask those kinds of questions. So what is your management style? What is your philosophy? How do you handle staff issues? You'll be able to get a sense for whether they're, how they operate there and how they then see these responsibilities then playing out every day.
Okay.
Because you're right, Katie, and Eileen, we want somebody that will use our staff though to maximum
Oh,
effect.
Yeah.
absolutely. If
And
don't,
that's,
you got the wrong
that's
person.
in that initial announcement letter,
Yeah.
written quite nicely in
Right.
that second to the last paragraph.
That's correct. Yes, it is.
Not in that final statement. Okay, good.
You guys made that
Good work.
abundantly clear in your exercise, and I hope that did come across in that document. So
Yeah, I did.
empowering staff,
Yep. It's important.
growth and development.
Any further?
Yep.
No, everybody good with it?
I like it.
I'm
With,
good with it.
it's just a comment I want to make about benefits, the comprehensive benefit package. I want to make sure that it's the same as the rest of the staff has. And it's not different than what's available to the rest of the staff. The last.
Right. Yes, and if we have it here, I mean, the idea is that the town itself offers its employees a competitive package, and so that's what.
And
that's the package.
everyone's the same.
Right.
Okay.
I don't, is that true though? Because I know that our town manager was able to use a town vehicle.
Oh.
And so I don't know,
That's,
we would. is
that's
that-
not the benefits
I
package.
think it's the health insurance, PTO, retirement.
I
education.
looked at the
the
vehicle as
whole
a
thing.
benefit.
Yeah, no, it is. No, it is. It is. But I think the ones we have spelled out here are health insurance,
Okay.
PTO, retirement, all those things. And those would be identical to what the rest of the stuff.
So, but I want to double on this, not so much because it's important tonight, but it's a really good question, a good point that you all should think about, because I will highly recommend, I don't even know where it was with Jeff, but I will highly recommend that you have a contract with your new manager, and that you have negotiated points. And there are a lot of reasons for a contract. One of them is so things are really clear when you separate from that person, and that it has a severance, which is a little bit of a pain point for both boards when they change to say, oh, I just want to fire the manager, move on from the manager, and also some assurance of continuity, that you're all professionals in this. But in a contract is where you would address some of those additional negotiated items, I'll call them. But you're right, the basic benefit package of health insurance, probably PTO, paid time off, however you do that, and those kind of things, retirement, those should not be different from employees, but there may be some negotiated points. You talked about housing is one, vehicles another one, and sometimes a severance package is negotiated in the front range as well. So we can have a conversation about that before you get to the last, it doesn't have to be tonight, but something for your attorney who probably works with other towns as well to talk with you about as well. Or maybe you want to talk to some other board members in other places, but I recommend having a contract for.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would never recommend anything different. You want a contract. It's expected that you have a contract. ICMA, CML, other institutions highly encourage that. It's just very definitive of the relationship. And I would strongly urge. that
We
approach.
did have a contract and it spelled out different benefits.
Okay.
And so that's why I brought it up.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Anything else with the description we intend to post, or the work that actually describes the duties that John's put together. So just to let you know, our intent is to post this with CML, ICMA, CCCMA will be the big ones and those are the ones that managers are most most used to going to.
Great, good job.
I love how the letter starts off.
John, thanks for all your hard work. Sarah and Michael, you guys jumped in. Antoinette, everybody jumped in, made their pieces, reviewed it, made adjustments and tweaks. And Sarah on the fly put some graphics and stuff together. So thank you for all of that hard work.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks,
Have a
John.
good night.
Good night. Thank you, John.
Take care. Bye-bye.
We are at Grand County Hazardous Mitigation Plan. Is that what it's called? Yeah.
Well,
That-
after all the kumbaya here,
It's
I want to
okay.
talk disasters.
So Chief's here tonight, and I've asked him, he and Michael to kind of tag team on pulling this together, and he's kind of been our lead person on this, and he made the presentation in Winter Park, but I've actually asked him to give us a brief synopsis on this, and then he can help navigate questions, and we can go from there.
So as you saw from the memo that Michael helped me draft, this hazard mitigation plan is something that communities were entitled to do after the Disaster Act of 2000 to better enable communities to prepare for disasters. This only addresses natural disasters. It would not address things like terrorism or large crime or anything like that. So it's just natural disasters. Andy read through every single page of this, which is more than I can say. I read the executive summary.
I didn't read about the disasters in Granby or.
Yes, okay. But, this plan was originally passed, I believe, in 2010. We hired a consultant at the time. It's supposed to be updated about every 5 years. Our Office of Emergency Management has had some struggles with quality people over the last several years. Now we have Joel Cochran on there, who I have known for probably 15 years, and he's an outstanding individual. We were really lucky to bag him, but that was one of the first things he did after he got done with the East Troublesome fire was got on this, hired a consultant. They helped us put this together. I think if you read through it, you're going to see things maybe you don't agree with or you don't like or that need to be emphasized more than other things. But ultimately, this was presented to FEMA and adopted by them. And as a result, what we're asking you to do tonight is to pass a resolution adopting this with the town of Fraser. Winter Park did so last night, and Granby did last week. Now, there is an option here. If you would like to go further than this and develop your own annex, you can certainly do that, but that's not going to be cheap or easy.
Yeah.
And but by and large, what this does is, should we have something like the Williams Fork fire that should come into town, or the East Troublesome fire, something like that, or let's say a snowstorm that shut down the valley for a week and a half. This enables us to go forward getting some reimbursement through FEMA for the expenses we would incur in something like that.
Okay.
Any
Andy,
questions?
did you
So,
have any
yeah,
specifics, or-
I have tremendous respect for this document. I'm sorry I wasn't more aware of it before, and I'm all for passing it tonight. But I would like to sit down with Joel sometime and go through. I made a bunch of notes and just a lot of ideas, and it says that it is an organic document,
It is.
which obviously it has to be after something like East Troublesome fire, and after, I mean, this thing kind of, what got my attention is it's good. It's well written. It's kind of like reading a disaster novel. You get started and you just can't quit. I mean, it goes through all the avalanches we've had, the toxic spills. Doesn't talk enough about a train breaking loose and tipping over in Fraser, which is one thing I'd like to talk a little bit more about. And so, but anyway, I'd just like to be a little bit more part of the process.
Sure.
But it's overall a good event. Like another example is we've had these wind events that are just really tough to explain. They're knocking down large sections of our forest. I think the easiest one to see is as you go over Berthoud Pass, you see that one on the other slope over there. We had a guy that was working for Headwaters Trails Alliance cleaning up one of the trails up Jim Creek, because there's a huge one back up underneath James Peak. And he said it looked worse than what he'd seen in hurricanes in the Gulf. And so if one of those hit town, I've talked to JVA a little bit about, to Craig Kobe, about whether we need to start looking at our hold down requirements for buildings and roofs to see if we need to start designing for these type of wind events, because nothing's very normal. I mean, we've got a carbon dioxide content in the atmosphere of 400 parts per million, which we haven't had for 10,000 years. And the last time we had that, this wasn't the planet that we're living on right now. So this type of document by no means has to address all of that, but we have to begin to look forward and what we have to do to plan for a climate that's just going to get really wacky and wackier by the month and day. And that this can be the kind of thing that can help us a little bit with that. And drought is another big one. It's we talked earlier about Project N and Project P. Those are ongoing disasters that it talks about a little bit in here and tries to bring, and not the sort of thing you normally give to FEMA, but they cost us millions of dollars, because waterworks and sanitation and all the things we have to do to deal with a climate that just changes completely, which it can. They're going to be tough conversations, but having this type of paperwork behind us can help us too. So no, Glenn, I'm 100% in support of this, and I'm sorry I didn't know more about it ahead of time, but I just felt it was worth talking about tonight, because I did notice through this that you've had a hard time getting the public to be very interested in this. And I think it would behoove the process to have us all know more about it. It helps us be more prepared. It's public disaster is largely a very large measure a public education thing. And the two people that died in the Grand Lake fire, you guys tried every which way to try and get them out of there. But in the end, we need to know ahead of time that when you guys say fire, we need to get the hell out of Dodge. and this type of thing can help us with that. So anyway, I think this could maybe help bring the public into this more too. So
I agree. And, I think it's kind of interesting because when we did the original document, it took place, and they hired a consultant on that one as well, but it took place over a matter of probably a year. And there were focus groups, there were public surveys, that kind of thing. I think on this one, they were behind the 8 ball so far that I think they had to do what they could immediately so that they could get this submitted. And I really compliment Joel for the work he did, because obviously with everything else, he's had a tremendous load on his plate since he walked in the door.
Oh, COVID.
And so I think the fact that
that
he took this under his wing and pushed it forward and actually got it approved by FEMA. And you all probably weren't aware of this, but there was the previous emergency manager had prepared a document that was incredibly substandard. And so when he came in, he had to not only recover from that, but prepare a document that would be approved by FEMA, and he just did a fabulous job. Although, these kind of things are kind of like my policy manual. There's always work to do.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right. Well, thanks for your input, Andy.
Yeah, you bet.
All right. Any other questions for me?
No, that's great.
All right.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks.
Somebody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to look back to the consent agenda here, but
Yeah, no.
to approve resolution 2021-0303, adopting the 2020 Grand County Hazardous Mitigation Plan.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed?
Okay. Awesome.
Great, thanks. We are now at open forum. Anybody from the public, this is your chance to address the, what? Yeah, I was getting there. Yeah, it's getting there to address us. So if you can virtually raise your hand, we'll have Michael unmute you and let you talk for 3 minutes. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands go up. So we are now at updates, staff updates.
I think Sarah had an update for us.
I do. More fun stuff from my world. So there is a grant that is available to us through CDOT. It maxes out at 150 grand. I am intending to apply for it to use it for the property that is known as the Mural Park, to basically put a park in there. And I know what you're thinking, Sarah, it's used for snow storage. We're going to put an art center there. But the intent with the design is, Russell and I have been arguing about this. But the intent with the design process is to make it not only customizable every year, but you can actually move it too. So I guess I'm asking like to move forward with the grant because it's going to be for town property.
And the grants amount in the previous years have been 50,000, but I think what we're being told now is that it's up to 150,000, and it's a relatively
easy thing to obtain. Yeah.
painless process.
Is there a match or is it?
Well, it's a 10%.
We just
Yeah.
want to begin to explore it, see if it makes
Yeah,
sense, and then
exactly.
maybe start initiating the application process. And figure out
Sure.
what that looks like. So
Go for it.
anyway, just want to keep you aware so we're not lurching down a path that you.
Right.
feel
You see a
otherwise.
park pop up and
Yeah,
you're like, where did that
exactly.
come
What
from?
happened there?
Go for it. That's awesome.
Any other staff updates?
And I don't know if you want to cover this on your side, but the county has invited the manager's office as well as the mayor to attend a work session next Tuesday from 3 to 5 to restart the conversation about the bypass. So my understanding is the county's engineers done some work and
wonderful.
we'll have an overview on that. So we're not entirely sure at this point what all that means, other than we'll be tag teaming. Russell's going to be helping me. I've got some spring break stuff I'm working through, but we're trying to tag team on that endeavor. So hopefully we'll have some better news at the next meeting, or some additional news at the next meeting on what that's looking like. So that's all.
You have one.
Could you kind
Yes, sir.
of keep me updated on what kind of routes they're talking about?
Sure.
That'd be great.
And this will actually be on WebEx, so it's a part of the BOCC meeting. So it's just tagged in at the very end of it. So obviously, if you wanted to watch that, you certainly can. But
If any documentation comes.
that's
forward on
kind of what
routing,
I'm looking
yeah.
for. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
To have my eye on. Right.
Great.
Correct.
And then can you talk briefly about the Market Street?
Right. So, yes, sir. Thank you for bringing that up. So pursuant to the board's direction, what was it, a few weeks ago, I reached out and engaged the developer on that project. So I did put
Can you
forth,
clarify which project again?
it's for the Market Street project.
Okay.
The two buildings or several buildings that are down there. So I did reach out to the developer, and pursuant to your direction that evening, put that offer back on the table that dealt both with the building permits as well as the economic incentive package that we that had previously been negotiated. So that was put in front of him. My understanding, he's been tied up on some litigation issues and has kind of been focused on that. I had a brief passing conversation. He said he had not yet had time to fully delve into that and hoped to do so shortly and would be getting back with me.
Okay, any other staff updates?
Mayor, it looks like this meeting was not created from the format that we had before that allowed people to raise their hands. So it looks like they are not able to with this current setting format. So if you don't mind, I'll go through just a short list of people just to see if they have any public comment.
Good catch.
Yeah, thank you.
Amy Golden, did you have any comment that you'd like to make?
No, thank you.
Barry Young, would you like to provide a comment?
No, we appreciate the opportunity to hear all these updates about.
Barry, I think you might be covering up your microphone. You're in and out.
Sorry. I'm not good with technology.
No worries. We can hear you fine.
Wait,
now.
we didn't hear anything you said, Barry. If you could just repeat.
I said I have no comments. We appreciate the opportunity to get the update on Main Street and on the Art Center.
Great, thanks.
Deb, would you like to provide a comment?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Lou Gregg's iPhone, would you like to provide a comment?
No, thank you.
Peggy Smith, would you like to provide a comment?
No, thank you.
And Solve the Problems, would you like to provide a comment?
No, thank you.
Okay, great. Now we are at trustee, and we actually added this because the last meeting, apparently I queued up Katie too soon, and there was apparently a couple trustees that wanted to make comments that did not get a chance to. So if that happens in the future, you got to just say,
Hey,
be assertive and say,
Wait.
hey, I'm not ready, and make your comment. So if there's any trustees that have any updates.
I'd just like to say for about 98% of the meeting, everybody who was on the Zoom call had identified themselves. And it just, I feel like, yeah, there was a lot of fun stuff in today's meeting, but the underlying level of hostility was way down because people were transparent. So thank you for those that did that.
I attended the housing meeting, and there was a lot of talk again about having a regional housing authority and the advantages to that. And I'm not sure what the disadvantages would be to us. But there was a lot of interest in that.
Yeah, Eileen, if I could add to that, I'm hoping, one of the things that came out of some of our recent negotiations was, and Rich Chimino actually suggested this, that we at least have, we hire a consultant that could work with our housing authorities to at least help us set standards for housing projects that come forward in the future, so that both developers know what they're going to be, what they're going to be working with, and housing authorities can be better educated as to how this process works. So was there much discussion of that at all, or, as possibly as an alternative to a regional housing authority?
That wasn't mentioned.
Okay, so I'm hoping at least somehow to get more help because it sounds like we've got at least another one on the table as Rendezvous comes forward, and it's a very complicated process, and having some standards and a consultant and that at least could get us down the right road for all of us that work in this, I think would be tremendously helpful for the participants and the governing bodies. So
There was talk about the county board not being the best board for the county housing authority, and maybe Fraser Town Board not being the best board for the Fraser Housing Authority, that it should be other people.
Yeah.
It's tough to get volunteers. So
Yeah.
I mean, when you have that, so many of us are on different committees because we're willing to put in the time, and that's, that boils down to that, getting people to volunteer and be part of that. So
that's why I talked tonight during the downtown discussion. Let's see what we can do with the folks we've already got on board.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Give
And
more
that-
work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
Listening.
you got them in the room at least. So.
Right. And then
So if I had a comment, why do we leave it up to the developers to be the ones that foot the bill for housing? Shouldn't it be all the stakeholders, all the people in the town helping out? Why should it just be the new developers that always have to provide more housing, which makes their housing more expensive?
I think maybe because of their development, more housing is needed.
We've been having a housing shortage since I moved here back in 1979, so I don't see how that's changed.
Right. Well, I can say that the town of Fraser is also helping with this, both financially and with staff time. The town of Winter Park has created housing in their town. So I would disagree that it's only the developers that are helping with the housing situation.
I'm not saying it's not just developers, Philip. I understand that we help and Winter Park's helping as best they can, but the rest of the stakeholders should be helping as well too. They could make things easier to get passed and approved and not always be not in my backyard when it comes to a development.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think everybody should be. I mean, that's one of the biggest issues that we have in our community right now is housing. So.
Yeah, it's a community issue, not an individual issue. That's all I was bringing up.
Okay. And then Catherine had something to add.
Yeah, I just wanted to let the town board know that we, I went to the county commissioners meeting yesterday and asked if we could transfer the $75,000 in conservation trust fund monies that we had allocated, or we had asked them to allocate to a GoCo match, to swap that out to our DOLA project, which we got funded last year for $300,000 for the utility extension and the bathroom construction. And so they did approve that. So that's great news. And staff is working hard to get those RFPs and invitations to bid out within the next couple of weeks. So sounds like it's going to actually happen this year. So that's great news.
Awesome.
Great. Thanks, Catherine.
We're gonna have a new place to go.
That's right.
Didn't want to quite put it like that, but yes, actually you will.
What a night. What a wonderful night to have a town board meeting. It's been a pleasure. Okay.
Right down to bathrooms.
Is it?
Before we go, do you want to add any? There was another pun there for you. Anything else you want to add to?
No, keep my mouth shut.
Okay.
Thank you. I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
8:41.